Yeah.
Okay, that's great, because we have a number of questions in the chat that would be
Yes.
probably good to get through. So I'll start with the top of the list for both you and Khaled. The first question is anyone still use an evaporation pan?
Not that I know, because the International Commission on Irrigation and Drainage moved to a more accurate equation. So what is being used in CIMMYS in the last 15 years, it's an agreed upon equation that is valid worldwide. And so the pan evaporation is no longer used because of uncertainties and some errors.
Okay, great. Next question. Sorry.
I can add, yeah, I can add a few things about pan evaporations. They were great back in the 50s and 60s and 70s. They're not accurate for measuring or estimating evapotranspiration on a daily basis. They're good for longer period of time, like a week or 10 days. There's no need for anybody to use them right now because there's so much error associated with them, especially when it comes to windy conditions. Thank you.
Great, thanks. The next question is, does drip help with hypoxia versus sprinklers?
Let me see. What's the question again? Sorry, I got distracted.
So does drip help with hypoxia as compared to sprinkler irrigation?
Yes, I think drip cycling water on and off helps because you barely reach a saturation condition. You reach a saturation condition with drips around the drip emitters, and then water migrates based on gradient. So I would say yes.
Khaled, do you have a comment on that at all?
No.
Okay. Next question. Can you speak about methods of detecting plant water status and any new research into this topic? So you've touched upon that, but
yeah, there's a lot of new research on plant water status, and there's a lot of new devices that are at the edge of the market, or actually on the market. But I would say most of them they need a lot of calibration and validation against periodic measurement. I talked about the FloraPulse. The FloraPulse is being deployed in almonds, and it looks like it works for the first year or so, and then because you drill a hole in the bark, then the cycle, the bark will create some insulation tissues that disconnect the sensor, so you have to re-drill a hole. And so those are, I would say, still at the research phase and need a little bit more time to calibrate and validate. Our group is working on a coefficient from ET, from Thule, that integrates the plant and the atmosphere, and it's called the alpha. We call it the alpha coefficient. We just submitted an article for wine grapes, and this will integrate the plant and the atmosphere. And if this alpha coefficient, let's say, is less than 1, then the plant is somehow feeling stress that causes stomata and reduce the evapotranspiration. So we did the calibration versus stem water potential and stomatal conductance and canopy conductance, but this was just for one season and one crop. I did something for citrus and pistachio, but we're still analyzing the result. There's a lot more going on on plant water status.
Great. So then this is a very practical question. If salts accumulate at the edge of the irrigated area, should routine irrigation go below the root zone so the salts don't accumulate in the root zone?
Khaled, you might want to answer
this. So this is a good example. If we're talking about drip irrigation and you see salts accumulating on the outer edges, it's time to have another irrigation system to do the leaching, like micro sprinkler or sprinkler irrigation or flood irrigation. That would be very helpful. To add additional water during the irrigation event for leaching, it's not going to help. It's better to have a dedicated event for leaching to get that extra salt away from the root zone. sometimes if we have too much salt buildup and you have rainfall event, that will be very harmful to the crop, because it's going to mix all the salt and bring the salinity back to the root zone.
So I have a follow-up question on that one. So, I mean, it's nice in theory to have I mean, we're not going to be flood irrigating avocados because we grow them on uneven terrain.
Yeah.
So the question would be, is having a secondary irrigation system is, first of all, very expensive, probably difficult to deploy on uneven terrain. So I know that some growers apply what they call leaching irrigation, where they'll use their existing irrigation system and apply extra water once a week, once a month. Would that be sufficient for leaching?
No, that's not a good way to do leaching. You don't want to leach with every irrigation because you end up wasting water. What I would suggest what I would suggest is, if you have a drip irrigation and you want to do leaching, move the drip away a little bit around so you're not adding water at the same location. So you may want to move it to the edge so you'll have that water going into that area where you have accumulation of salt and take it down. If you have micro sprinklers, you can do the same, and micro sprinkler would be much more efficient than drip irrigation for leaching. You don't need another, if you have, slope, you don't need flood irrigation or another irrigation system. So you could do leaching with micro sprinkler, or even, since we're talking about relatively small area, we're not talking about, 100 acres or so. If we're talking about few acres, you can move the drip irrigation system around so you can get water into the areas where you have high salinity. But you don't want to do leaching with every irrigation.
Yeah, I've seen growers in Chile, in areas that are affected by water quality and salty water. They move the drip line to the center of the row and they irrigate for longer hours in order to push that fringe away and to flush the salt. If the soil has a good drainage. If the soil doesn't have good drainage, I'm not sure this is the right practice. You probably will need some micro sprinkler or micro sprayer in order to and do this during the low sensitive stages of the crop.
Okay, that's great. So we're going to have in the next session, I think Colette is going to be talking about leaching. You may not know that Ben's going to ask you to talk about leaching, but I saw that on the schedule. So we'll come back to leaching.
Okay.
So the next question is, can you speak to any new work being done for soil replacement and watering to soil as prime watering scheduling? For example, hydroponics or complete soil replacement at the root ball with the most ideal soil or some other media? I know it's a complicated question.
I can't because I don't have experience on hydroponics or soil replacement, so I probably am not the right person. I know Ben Faber is testing something with berries in soilless condition and in containers, but I'm not the right person. I don't have experience with that.
Well, I have some experience overseas. I've seen tree crops in hydroponic conditions, fig trees, and those are not very common. They're very sophisticated. In terms of moving the soil in the root zone area, take that soil and bring something else, I would not recommend it, because you're going to create different zones of soil, and the water movement will be extremely complicated and not easy. You may end up creating areas where you have, the soil gets saturated, the new soil or the soil mixture would get saturated and create problems. What I would suggest in conditions like this is mixing the soil rather than creating, a good area for a root zone. That could be applicable for like a homeowner. But on a commercial scale, it's much better to mix the soil. If you're going to bring some other soil that will help or some other material, the best thing to do is mix it, not just to create, a special zone for the root zone.
Great. So the next question is, do people generally trust the satellite imaging services and the NRCS soil surveys? I have heard of people having significantly different ground measurements compared to the satellite provided measurements.
I think I can answer the first part of the question. Maybe Kyle can answer the soil survey. The answer is there with subtropical crops like citrus, I would say olive and avocado. What you get from the satellite is very different with respect to what you get from the ground measurement. In my citrus ET study, we are comparing OpenET and other satellite ET estimate with our measurement, and we got plus and minus 20 to 70% difference of the satellite with respect to our ground measurement. And this, so there's a huge sources of uncertainties and errors that we are trying to address. We just submitted a proposal to the Citrus board in order to work and investigate. We actually know where the uncertainties are, but we want to quantify the errors and try to propose improvement. So my answer is no. I don't trust satellite imaging for estimating ET. For irrigation scheduling, at least, no.
Okay, in regard to NRCS soil maps, I talked to somebody who participated, an old-timer, way back in the 80s, who participated in these, events. They used to have a grid, about 300 feet. And they will take soil samples and come up with these soil maps. They're a good starting point, but they're by no means accurate. It's good to start with the soil maps, but you need to have a backhoe and find exactly what kind of soil you have. You have lots of variability. Sometimes you may have a field like, let's say, 20 acres, and the soil map will show one soil type. If you go there and start doing backhoe, you will find variability in soil. So I would suggest, getting to know the soil at close by doing backhoe. Backhoe is a good way to know what you're doing when it comes to soil.
Okay, so we have the next question is this. I use a SimSmith aerometer. How long should I be not watering after the water level reaches 15 inches and I shut off the water to allow sufficient oxygenation? Should I leave coverage be encouraged to allow surface root development, or should leaves be cleared away to allow the water to absorb into the soil quickly and reduce evaporation? So my opinion would be, from following root growth, is you should never take the leaf mulch away, because the roots grow up into that interface between the soil and the leaves. So that would be my 2 cents worth, but I'll leave it to Danelli and Khaled to answer more thoroughly.
Yeah, so I agree with Mary Lou. I think mulching is an insulating layer in terms of prevents soil evaporation and prevents to expose the roots to other source of stress. So I would leave it there, because that's a usable mulching layer. For the aerometer question, it really depends on the type of soil that you have, at the level of the value that you read from aerometer. So I would stop irrigation if it's a kind of a sandy loam. We'll stop irrigation when the aerometer will show like 10 to 15 kilopascal, and then get it back irrigating when. So if you follow the table that I provided in the presentation, you will get a sense when to irrigate it back. And normally a depletion of 25 to 30% of soil moisture will allow enough oxygen to be supplied and not waterlog the orchard. But it really depends on what type of soil we're talking about.
Well, great. So now we have a very long question, but it's practical too.
All right.
So excellent presentation. So thumbs up to both of you. So please help solve an irrigation puzzle for avocados with feeder roots in the top 18 inches. Growing mature trees on a hillside with heavy clay soils, but the top 4 to 8 inches is gorgeous loam from a decade of decomposing mulch following the Ben Faber mulch and gypsum method. When the top layer is dry, the clay remains saturated, asphyxiating the roots and breeding root rot water mold Phytophthora cinnamomum. Is it better to keep the mulch layer sufficiently moist with shorter term irrigating cycles and risk salt buildup from poor quality water, or wait for the lower level heavy soils to dry out before irrigating with longer cycles? And this is really, you see this a lot, so.
Yeah. I would say there's a frequency problem there for sure. I would tune up the frequency in order to avoid hypoxia, and at the same. So I would say cycling irrigation on and off with the light shower, light irrigation. It's always the best practice for layer soil, because you can work around the critical aspects. If the critical aspect is the clay, then you can work and tailor your frequency to the clay. If the critical aspect is the soil salinity, then you work around that aspect. So micro irrigation allows you a lot of flexibility in that. So I would suggest to avoid longer irrigation cycle, wetting and drying, and to reduce the amount of water and increase the frequency.
Yeah. Keep in mind when you're dealing with heavy soils, lower levels may never dry, even if you keep it, if you wait on it, it may never dry. From my experience with heavy soils, the best thing with heavy soils is mixing the soil. The physical movement, the physical breaking of that soil makes a big difference. You get the aeration. And so, for example, if you see heavy soil, a field with heavy soil, and you install a drainage system, when they install a drainage system, they go with a trench about maybe 5, 6, 7 feet, and they just put the same soil back to fill that hole. You could see that effect for 30, 40 years because of the physical improvements in soil texture, basically lowering the bulk density, fluffing the soil in a way or another. But don't rely on the deep soil getting dry. It may never get dry.
Great. So we have a couple more questions. So the next one is there an issue with drip emitters because of animal damage, such as coyote, to the polypipe? And should polypipe be installed under the leaf coverage?
I've seen that, and there's damages by foxes and coyotes, especially under dry conditions. So I don't know whether a coyote will not spot the pipe even under the leaf coverage. So I'm not sure this is installing under the leaf coverage is a solution. Coyotes are pretty smart, and will chase the polypipe anyway. But yeah, maybe yes.
Yeah, I agree with Daniel. We tried even having buckets of water for the coyotes to drink, and didn't work. They like to go after the drip tubes. And the best thing is just to be on top of it and fix the damage. Try to find ways where you can get them away from the farm.
Great, so we have one more question here in the chat. Khaled indicated that grants are available for financing the removal of micro sprinklers and replacement with drip emitters. Where do we go to apply for these grants?
Okay, so I just put on the chat Google Sweep CDFA. Those should be coming up very soon. The governor allocated last year $50 million for sweep grants. And these are basically up to $200,000 per grant. You don't have to come up with a matching fund or anything. You have plenty of people to help you filling these applications. And basically anything related to irrigation and energy would qualify. So if you have an outdated irrigation system, it doesn't matter whether sprinkler irrigation, micro sprinkler, drip irrigation, any type of irrigation system, if you want to replace it, you would be qualified. You could also do, energy improvements, like getting a solar system to help to offset the energy consumption at your farm. And we can help you with that. So if you Google Sweep CDFA, you'll be able to find out the website, and I'll try to find it and put it in the chat. And the money should be available sometimes, I would say, in maybe October. Last year, they released the call in November. So watch for it in October, November of this year. And I'll try to find the website and put it in the chat.
Yeah, there's an additional program. It's called NRCS Equipped, and those programs are not not necessarily conflicting. So you can have a hardware improvement of your irrigation system to be funded by NRCS Equipped program, and at the same time, management technology like soil moisture sensor, Thule, or ET, or even automation to be funded by CDFA Sweep. There's plenty of funding available. I think, Khaled, the next Sweep round of funds will start in January. So it might be probably announced in November or December.
Yeah, so I'm sharing the website here, and they already opened the program for the Low Desert, Imperial Valley, and Riverside counties. You go there, take a look here, and I would say the best thing to do is get an idea about this program, find out, the projects that they were funded last year. And they have, there's UC Community Education Specialist. I know we've done educational activities in Ventura with Ben Faber and Andre Pescaro. You have a community education specialist in Ventura County. So you can see the community education specialist here, including myself. I cover statewide. So if you need any help, I can help with the application process as well. But we have these community education specialists at different locations that they can help at your local, county.
So I also noticed there's a San Diego, but I don't see a Riverside County person listed.
Well, Imperial covers Riverside. Anna here covers Riverside and Imperial County, but she's located in Imperial County.
So if someone was in Rancho California, Temecula, and wanted to apply, they would contact Anna.
Yes, or they can contact, they can contact me. We do educational activities with Esther here. We've done educational activities in Escondido. We've done educational activities in Ventura. So, Nikki here in Ventura is a contact person.
Okay, great. And then UC Cooperative Extension in San Diego is having an irrigation management meeting, I think, next week. So I know that Ben is speaking at that one, and so that would be another good place to go to get more information about these types of things.
Yeah. We can
So-
also organize a workshop on kind of on request in order to show how it works to submit a successful application. Yeah,
Well,
we've done
maybe-
this before.
Maybe one thing we could do is we could have an avocado cafe meeting about this, maybe in about
Yeah.
another.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can invite the CDFA officer that normally we invite when we have a training workshop. We invite and he explains how to, how the program work and what the different option, or we can do it ourselves.
okay.
Yes, they are. There's a question here. Are these programs applicable to small orchards? Definitely, yes. The idea is that small growers and early, I would say, beginning growers and small orchard, they need more help than a large corporation. Yes, so the answer is yes.
Well, great. Well, maybe I'll talk to Ben. And maybe that's what we should do in the next couple of weeks is have so should we wait till the call comes out, you think, Danelli, or should we do it beforehand?
I've seen the tentative guidelines. There's not much change with respect to the previous round of funding. So anytime is good, also because growers will need to provide some documents. So it's good to have some time to prepare the documents and the pump test. I think the pump test is still necessary. So when we running against time, one of the most difficult things is to have somebody to come and run the pump test to show the level of efficiency of the pumping.
Well, great. So I'll contact both of you about organizing another avocado cafe on working on a sweep application for anybody that's interested. That'd be great. So we still have a few more minutes. Does anybody have any additional questions they want to raise their hand or put in chat? I'm waiting to see. I don't see anybody raising their hand.
Mary Lou, can you hear me?
Yes, Michael.
Hey, I wonder if
Yes.
this sweep program that we're discussing is not a retrograde process. We've already talked about the accumulating salts from repetitious, slow and easy and evaporating process of surface dye. I've stuck with micro sprinklers. I go 120 gallons per week per tree. Every once a month, I go 24 hours and I have no flat places in my orchard. I slope all my mounds 24 inches to a center where the drainage occurs. I'm hoping if we did a salts examination, my salts are accumulating, if any, in the bottom of the row in the center. We periodically rip that about 3 foot deep or more if we can get another tractor to push us. And I'm hoping not to have the accumulation, but I like to water and use all my orchard for root zones, not just a mound top. My mounds slope all the way to the center. There's no flat spot in my orchard. And I would feel that going to drippers would be a retrograde process. I want to answer what you think about that.
What type of soil do you have?
You're muted.
What
Type of soil.
what was the question?
What type of soil do you have? What
I
texture
started
of
out
type
with
of
pretty
soil?
soft. Well, it's all sediment water if you go back in history 5 million years ago. But I deep rip my life believes in my heart. You got one chance in 40 years to do it right. So you rip maybe 5 feet. I usually get 4 to 5, and I'm praying for 5 most of the time. And then I put about 15 to 20 tons of barley mulch on there. I put 4 crops of barley on there before I plant anything. Then I disc it to held until I got a good thing. Then I mound it, and I don't allow any water any traffic or anything on my mounds because that's just going to pack them. Stay the hell out of my orchards, if you will. And I so far, my best results, best year I had on it was probably the 15th year. I picked 35,000 pounds one year. So, I think I'm getting where I'm hoping to be. I certainly look forward to see. I attend every meeting that we have in Riverside if I can possibly get there. I find it fun just to do what's doing. But by mounding with long slopes rather than making mounds with a flat top, I'm hoping to have enough seepage down the sides that I'm getting root zones, and I can dig roots up out in the center most of the time. So I'm hoping to farm all my property, not just a mound. That'd be if you 50 foot, probably 50% of your dirt is not being irrigated. But anyway, irrigate to enough runoff on that, stop it. My most volume on my tensiometers is at 18 inches. Water will come at 18 and it'll go at 18. So I got a lot of movement down at 18. At 12 and at 15, rather 6 inches, one good wind and you're done. 12 inches, that's just nominal whatsoever. 18 inches seems to be more stable, coming and going, coming, going. Then I have 36-inch tensiometer. If I ever get water there, I was a fool. So, that's where I work. And I'm asking you again, my interest would be there's some movement trying to go to drippers, and I just don't think I want to do that. You'd have to hard cuss me to get me. Incidentally, on the mulch, I've been trying to use a very coarse mulch, which would probably take it 10 years to degrade it all. So you always have oxygen down through it. And my wife's biggest complaint in her part of the yard when she puts mulch, it just keeps it moist under her plants, and she calls it muddy under there. I don't think it's quite muddy, but it's certainly moist. And that's we run her some water so she doesn't have to go hand water every rose bush. So anyway, I still go. My basic question is, if you had a choice, would you stay with mini sprinklers, or would you try to go back to a drip system and then deal with that problems? Thank you.
All right. Well, you're doing everything right, especially with deep ribbing. That's the best method to control salinity. The question whether you go to drip irrigation, I would stick with micro sprinklers as long as they've been working for you, and they're efficient. How many inches do you apply in any given year total?
Well, that would depend on, we have east wind coming down from Moore Park down to the Oxnard area. And some days, you just get the heat. And in this last hot spell, I did a 4-hour sprinkler once a day to try to keep my top soil moisture up to where the trees did not have a hard job of getting. And so far, my drop has not been at all on this time. I think I did a good luck thing, probably, maybe more of that than knowledge. But we had 110 degrees at my house, and I still don't have the stem damage that I did a few years ago when we had the first big heat and then the wind. You get your stems dried out, and then you get a wind to hit them. All your fruit's going in. I picked I have one little 5-acre block that is my kind of testy block, and I picked 120 bins out of that 5 acres one year. And the year that the wind hit me and everything, I only picked 20 bins. That wouldn't pay for the water. So this is so much dependent on the year, the wind, the sun, everything that's happening. Is you got to be mobile. You cannot stand in one spot and just keep doing the thing, everything.
Yeah. I would say
go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Khaled. No, I mean, moving from a sprinkler or micro sprinkler to drip, that will be a transition time for the trees to develop roots also in the wet area. So I would say if you're happy with what you have so far, don't change it. I would only be concerned about the energy. So micro sprinkler will probably increase your energy bills with respect to drip, but water-wise, I think you're doing things right, because you planted on berms and you avoid excess water and epoxy by having well-shaped berms. And so I would not, if I were you, I would not change anything for the time being. And then, in order to answer this question, we need to collect a more detailed information on the things that you think could be improved, or paying you a visit, and with Ben paying you a visit. But I think if you're happy, I would not change anything, because there will be a transition time for the new route development if you change irrigation application method.
And you can still apply for these SWIP grants to get soil moisture sensors and weather stations, solar system to help you with offsetting the energy requirements. There's another questions here about soil amendments, and Daniele already answered, but I would say it depends on who's giving you the advice. If I'm selling soil amendments and I tell you, it's going to help with the salinity buildup, I have to prove that it's going to help with salinity buildup. And you could try it. You can always try things on relatively small area. And whenever somebody comes to me and say, well, I have this great product that will increase yield by 50% and reduce water use by 50%, I tell them, well, show me. And I'm not going to spend any money. I would, be willing to try a little bit on small area. And then they will either, if they believe in their product, they will do the test with you. If not, they're going to go away. So it depends.
Thank you very much. So do we have any more questions? We've gone a little bit past 10 o'clock. I want to thank everybody for all the great questions in the chat and in person. If not, what I will do is that I will work with Colette and Daniele about scheduling a training session on how to put a SWIP application together. And then Ben is organizing the final session for this irrigation series. And we will have a date probably within the next 4 to 5 weeks. We'll have that next session. But I'll ask Daniele and Colette, should we have this training session sometime in the next 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks? Is that what you would recommend?
Probably having it in a month of October will be good enough.
Okay, so I'll work with you to get a date in October between my travel and your travel and activities. So that'll be great.
Right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you to
you so
everybody. Have a
much.
great day.
Bye.